there were a bunch of people invited, and I think that we're going to go in this kind of an order, since it's Carl's show, we're going to have Carl go first, and then I'm going to ask. I think we have two visiting artists with them. I'll ask them to go after that, and then I'll ask Gary Page to go after that. He's in the Newberger Gallery, and then we have a few other artists. So we'll work our way through that field and ask each of you to comment on a photo that I have. If you have a different photo and you're familiar with Zoom and you'd like to share that photo, you're welcome to do that. We haven't done that before, but we can certainly try it out and see how it works. So I'm going to share a screen with you right now. Carl, you're around?
Yeah, I'm right here. Don, I've got all the photos on mine. I can just do the screen share from my end for my work if you want.
Okay, no, that's fine. Carl's, we've been Zooming every week since this pandemic thing, since last March, so we're pretty familiar with doing that kind of stuff. So go ahead, Carl. I'll let you have your time. Carl's got a couple of little videos he'd like to show us as well.
I'll try not
So
to
let's
take
go
too
for
much
it.
time. I want to make sure that there's enough time for everybody to speak, and we enjoy it all. I say hi. My sister was there for a minute ago. I saw her name on there, Lorraine Sokowski. She dropped back out for some reason. Maybe she'll come back in. And I see Jason Lockwood, my niece's husband. So that's probably my niece in Missouri on there. So welcome to them, and welcome to all my friends. Let's see here. Let's share my screen. And I'll give you a little talk about what I'm doing here. My screen should be shared. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think by now everybody knows that the subject of my show is the TWA Flight Center at JFK Airport. Flight Center is kind of an odd name, I guess. Really, it's a terminal building. Why they chose to call it Flight Center, I'm not sure. But anyway, that was originally Terminal 5 at JFK Airport. And TWA used this terminal building from 1962 until they were purchased by American in 2001. And in 2001, TWA went over to the American terminal, and this building became empty and has sat empty until last year. And JetBlue Airlines and the Port Authority of New York wanted to tear this building down so that they could build a new terminal building, a new Terminal 5 that was large and modern. And in fact, if you look back here, I guess you can see my mouse pointer, can't you? Yep, somebody say yes. Okay. Back back there, you see the green windows. That's actually that's Don's dog. I recognize Don's dog. Yeah, he muted himself. Those green windows are Terminal 5, the JetBlue terminal at JFK. So they made JetBlue build their terminal building back behind this building and leave it here because it's on the National Register of Historic Places and it's also a New York City landmark. Last year, or a couple of years ago, the Port Authority of New York wanted to do something with this building, and they offered it to a hotel group to use it. So it has been converted and renovated into the lobby of the hotel, of the TWA Hotel. And these buildings that you see on either side here, these square buildings with the dark windows, are the two hotel wings. Each building contains 250 rooms, so there's a total of 500 rooms. Liz and I stayed there on May 15 last year, 2019, the day that the hotel opened. So we spent the opening night there, and I photographed the building then. And then with that experience and knowledge, I went back this past September and did some additional photography. So anyway, the building, if you look at it, designed by architect Eero Saarinen, the publicity at the time it opened said that it looks like a bird in flight. And I'm not sure if that's what Eero Saarinen actually intended for it to be, but the publicity was it is reminiscent of a bird in flight. I'm not sure I would agree with that. Actually, if you take a look, to me it looks like an alien spaceship. It looks a little like is that a Romulan Battlestar? Those who are Star Trek fans probably know what that is, but or is that is it Romulan? Anyway, it looks a bit like a spaceship. But to me
That's a
personally,
Klingon ship.
Klingon. There you go, Klingon. I knew there would be a Star Trek fan in here. Thank you, Gil.
Yep.
To me, it looks more like a manta ray. If you've ever seen a manta ray and the pictures of them, I doubt many of you, except maybe Chip Ever, have seen a manta ray in person. In fact, that may be Chip down there in that photograph, for all I know. But I think it looks more like a manta ray if you look at this building with the eyes in the front and so forth. I think it looks quite a bit like a manta ray. But for whatever reason, there it is. It's a beautiful building. And now it serves as the largest hotel lobby in the world. It's a massive building to simply be the lobby of the hotel, but it's just a beautiful place. I was an airline employee for 30 years, and I flew in and out of that building many, many times over the years, and I was always impressed with it. Just a beautiful building. Let's see here. One in advance. Let's try that again. There we go. If you don't know who Eero Saarinen is, and you probably do, I think the familiar architects' names from the 20th century, I guess Frank Lloyd Wright is the most famous architect in that period, and I.M. Pei, of course, but Eero Saarinen is well known as well. He began his career designing furniture with Kroll, and this is his tulip chair that he became very, very well known for. So I'm sure you've all seen that type of chair, and that is an Eero Saarinen design. But something you probably all are familiar with that Eero Saarinen did was the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. We've all seen that at one time or another, but he designed a number of buildings over the years, some beautiful buildings. This is Bell Labs in Holmdel, New Jersey. I just love that building and the skylights and all the light that comes in. This is the General Motors Technical Center in Detroit. And this is the Kresge Auditorium at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So all of those are Eero Saarinen designs. His last design was the TWA Flight Center in New York. He actually died while it was under construction. And so he never lived to see the completion of it. But here it is. This is looking from the inside. My concept when I did the photography was I wanted to capture both the overview and the massive space, and I tried to use people for scale so that people would have an idea of how large this building is. There are no center supports in the building. It's only supported at the corners. And just a beautiful sweeping building, and the phrase they like to use is that there are no right angles anywhere in this building. Actually, there are a right angle here and there. If you look over here at the front door, there's a little right angle there. But basically, the building has no right angles. So I photographed, when you come into the gallery, by the way, and you start looking at the images, I have them arranged in order so that you're seeing the outside of the building and the massive inside of the building just as you come in the door of the gallery. And as you walk around and look at my display, you're getting more and more detailed as you walk through the gallery. So after photographing the wide open spaces, I started looking for details. And here's a beautiful staircase that I found that I really liked, and that it really exemplifies the curves and sweeping design that Eero Saarinen used in the interior of this building. I like this image so much, as a matter of fact, I printed it very large. And if you've been in the gallery, if you haven't, please come in the gallery and take a look at it. If you notice, I made it very large back in the alcove back here, so it looks almost as though we have a staircase going up to the second floor of the gallery. Don't make a mistake and walk into the wall if you do that, by the way. That wouldn't be a good idea. So that image sits back there, and that is a little more detailed than the overview that I showed of the interior a minute ago. I kept going further and further and deeper and closer to get more detail and abstract images. There's so many curves and sweeping walls and tile floors and that kind of thing. It's just a beautiful place to photograph. And I made a lot of abstract photos, and you'll find those toward the end of my display as you go through the gallery and come around to the far side near the desk. And they'll be in white frames, the abstract images. I believe those are the ones that Betsy really liked the most, if I had to be my guess. Moving along. Yeah. Somebody asked a question. Let's move on here. Here's I wanted to show you something. This is the arrival and departure board for the flight information. In the airline business, we call this a FIDS system, Flight Information Display System, FIDS. And back in these days, of course, in the early 60s, there were no computer terminals, TV monitors for flight information. So they use these things that are called split flap A&D boards, arrival and departure boards. Split flap, S-P-L-I-T, and flap, F-L-A-P, split flap. To give you an idea of what this does, by the way, if you look at that design of that particular item, it looks rather space age from the early 1960s, our view of what the future in space might look like. In fact, you'll see it looks a little reminiscent of somebody else that we know here. Maybe Steven Spielberg. I guess Spielberg did E.T., didn't he? Yeah. And so he probably came up with, well, he probably didn't, but anyway, he may have come up with his design for ET from looking at this flight information display board in the TWA terminal. Here's the board up close, and I want to show you just a brief video of this if I can here, see if it'll let me do it. What did I do wrong here? Okay. Somehow or another, I have to do this and close it.
Probably have to stop sharing this screen, Carl.
I can't get to the start button on it. For some reason, it's down there. Let me do this here. If I do this, I can do it. There we go.
Very cool.
Is that actually what it sounds like?
Yeah, the actual sound of it, yeah. Let's stop that for a minute, go back to full screen. Those were used pretty commonly for many years in the airline business. In fact, I worked at Newark Airport across the river, and we had a board similar to this for many years in the 70s before the CRT tubes with the flight information were posted that way. This remained in TWA's used it right up until 2001 when they were merged with American, and then the company that built it is a company called Solari out of Italy, and they completely renovated this thing to make sure that it works. Those are all bogus flights on there. That's just for looks. I mean, the TWA is gone, obviously. Piedmont is gone. Eastern is gone. I mean, so these are just to make it look like it probably looked back in the day. And one other thing I wanted to mention was the east front wall of the gallery. I have photographs of a Lockheed Constellation airplane that they have on display at the Flight Center. It's right behind the building. You can see the building in this photograph here, and the airplane is parked right out there. It's in a non-secure area. You don't have to get permission or anything. In fact, if you fly into Terminal 5 into JetBlue's terminal today and walk out of the baggage claim area, and you can walk across the street if you can dodge the taxis, and walk right up to this airplane and walk in at any time. There's nobody there to check you, to ask you for identification, nothing. It feels kind of strange as an old airline guy like me to walk up to an airplane knowing I don't have an airport ID on my shirt, but kind of a really an interesting sight. That was the last great propeller-driven airplane before the jet age. The Lockheed Constellations flew from the early 50s till the mid-60s, and then pretty much all of them were retired. I just love the look and sound of these airplanes. I want to show you something here. This is just about the end of it here, so bear with me for just a couple more minutes. This is not that particular airplane. This is another Lockheed Constellation, actually in Germany, taking off. Notice the flames coming out of the engines. That is typical of the Wright Cyclone engines. They're 16-cylinder radial engines that produce 3,500 horsepower each, so that's almost 15,000 horsepower that lifts that airplane into the air. That is a Lockheed Constellation. Let me play that for you, and I'm going to turn the volume up here so you can hear the sound of this thing. And the passengers that used to ride these airplanes said that seeing the flames coming out of the exhaust of the engines gave them reassurance that the airplane is operating like it was supposed to. It means it's working when you see those flames coming out. It's not a scary thing at all. Let's play this video, and I'll let you see this for just a minute. That is a beautiful sight to an airline guy like me. That is that just brings chills up and down my spine to see a Lockheed Constellation take off like that. Beautiful airplane. Has 3 tails, and sometime in the future, if you're interested, I'll tell you why it has 3 vertical tails back there instead of 1 like most airplanes. There's a story behind that, but I won't take up any more time in our reception tonight to talk about it. And maybe we should hold questions for me until the end, Don, so that we make sure we have plenty of time for everyone else, okay? Sound like a plan? I'll turn it.
I think we should ask your questions now.
Okay, fine. I'll stop my screen share if you like. Go right ahead. Anybody have a question?
Carl, the lighting, especially of the abstracts, it seems like, there's some perfection to even that. So I suspect that was part of the architect's design.
I'm sure the windows, the sky, he used skylights and a lot of big open windows, as you probably saw, that allow a tremendous amount of daylight into the building. And then there's a lot of artificial lighting in there. The color temperature of the lights varied a bit. I noticed there were places like that one photograph I showed you there with the curves on it. You saw some blue light and some white light. So there is some variation, and that may be the modern electricians that did that, but it's an interesting mix, kind of like the front window of our gallery where we have a mixture of our LED lights and the light coming in through the front window. Anybody else have a question?
Just sort of a comment.
Yeah,
The white on white with the subtle shading and just all the curvatures. That's like, wow. It sort of reminds me in college of my first photo project that I had to do for assignment was the egg project, and I did a white on white thing for that, and I just love the subtle shading, and you must have had a ball shooting that.
I did. You know, every place you look, Jim, every corner had little curves and that type of thing. So I ended up with just dozens and dozens of abstracts that I could have shown, and I think I put about 8 or 10 of them up on the gallery. So thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
So I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Mike, I hear you. Go ahead.
Right. So I noticed in the interior shots, the people, look like models. Everybody's dressed very nicely and, really nice clothing. You don't really see that in an airport nowadays.
Not nowadays. Of course, most of those photographs were taken, Mike, on the opening day when they were having a celebration. So a lot of people were dressed up, and there were people that were dressed in period clothing. In fact, right inside the door of the gallery, I have a photograph of a couple of ladies in flight attendant uniforms, stewardesses they were in those days. And so, yeah, and the security guy that was standing out in the middle of that building, that open shot I showed of the interior of the building, that was a security guy in a black suit. So, yeah.
Carl's budget was large. He had some folks he hired to walk around as well.
If we had had an actual reception instead of a virtual reception, I actually was going to see if I could get a couple of retired TWA flight attendants that could still fit in their uniforms to come serve at the reception. And but that didn't work out, so here we are online anyway. I wish we could have had an actual reception, but this is good.
Hey, Carl.
Hey.
We had a question here from Missouri.
Yeah. Hi, Jason. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fine,
Got
thanks.
everybody behind me here.
Hi, Katie.
My son Joe, who's 17, he was admiring the photos you were showing, and they're so vibrant. Are those HDR images, or they just look they're so clear and bright? How did you photo?
Actually, no. There may be one or two that were HDR, but I don't think so, Jason. I shoot RAW, and usually with RAW files you can pull down highlights and lift the shadows and get quite a bit of detail without having to shoot HDR. I do typically shoot HDR, by the way. It's not unusual. I bracket my shots and end up with three or five images, and I can put them together. But the vast majority of those were single shot. Very high ISO, by the way. Most of those were shot at 5,000 or above ISO, and the noise reduced in post-processing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I see my sister back there. Hi, Lorraine. There you
Carl,
go.
what do you do for noise reduction? What program do you use?
I use Topaz Denoise AI as an artificial intelligence. Topaz Denoise AI does a marvelous job. Will take a 5,000 ISO image and get rid of most of the noise and still retain the detail. It's a remarkable program. I love it.
Great. Anybody else for Carl? Carl, thanks. You did a great job.
Thank you, Don.
And I hope you guys can get in and see the work. It really is exceptional. I have to tell you, when we put it up, I was surprised. Not that Carl couldn't do that, but I was surprised Carl did that because I've never seen anything like that from him before. So it's really good, and it's great photography, especially the abstracts, which I'm not a huge fan of abstracts, but he did a really good job with many of those. They're really great.
Thank you, Don.
I'm going to switch over to Mr. Beery, if you just give me a second. He's one of our visiting artists at the moment. Let me just see if I can get up what I want to get up first, because it might take me a second, because Carl threw a curve at me. Wait, almost that, okay. All right, here we go. You ready, Dick?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So,
Dick did you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Dick did this series on this woman. Tell us about that, Dick.
well, what I really wanted to do before the pandemic hit was bus stops of Rochester. The pandemic sort of eliminated that from my shooting this summer. So I went back in 2010. I attended a workshop in San Francisco on wandering among strangers, and we learned to do street photos. So I went back and pulled out a tremendous number of street photos that I have taken. I show them in a artist statement around the edge of it. But then I also categorized them with young women and their tattoos. And I have 4 women that I approached and asked them about their tattoos. The one that you see on the screen was one that I say it was in the Trashy Diva in New Orleans. I'm not sure if that's the correct store or not, but she was showing off her tattoo. She was very happy. It was just colored recently. She wanted to talk about it. And so I asked her if I could take a few shots of it, and I did. And so you'll see 4 photos in there of 4 different women. And I approached all of them and talked to them about their tattoos. One of them had just gotten a tattoo and it wasn't colored in yet, and but she was really excited about it. Another one is a member of the Deviant Art Group, and I saw her in a greenhouse. She was sketching flowers and so forth for her artwork, and I just enjoy talking to people on the street. It's daunting to walk up to somebody you don't know. You have to think it through carefully. And then you just chat with them. And most all of my street photos over the last 10 years have been people I have talked to, so that I get a little story behind them. And yes, once in a while I use a long zoom to take a shot of somebody from a distance, but I like people and their stories, and that's what this whole exhibit is about, by this time.
Dick, you made a really good point. Some of the street photography that I've been taught, the thing about shooting people is that you get much better shots when they're close than when you do from a distance. But people pretty much want to tell you their story. So if you approach it the right way and you have a conversation with them before you take any photographs, and then ask them if they can take a picture, they almost always say it's okay. Even in some of the roughest neighborhoods that I've been in, if you talk to people and find out what they're doing, they usually will say it's okay. I have been turned down sometimes, but not that often.
No, the one, and it happened to me next month. I'm also a visiting artist, and it's something entirely different. So I've been shooting around Rochester, prepping for it. And the same thing happened to me in San Francisco. Is that I was taking a shot on actually a young man walking across the street. I thought he looked very angry and so forth. And then he told me about being a drug dealer and I shouldn't take a picture of him, and started really harassing me. And I told him I was doing the architectural shots of the building behind him. And I had that happen in Rochester yesterday. Somebody talked about it. And I pointed to what I really was taking a photo of. And he called me a few choice words and went on his way.
By the way, that's an interesting strategy that I was told it could employ. Is if you walk up to a group of people and you just look at the sky, and you wait for them to look at the sky, and then you take a picture, because they think you're looking at something, but they'll stop looking at you and you just take a picture.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I have done that on the stairway coming out of the subway, and just talk to people as they're coming up the subway and ask them if I can take a shot.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
So one of the questions people will ask you is, did you get a written permission from them to use these photos?
No, I did not. That's why they're all marked not for sale in the gallery this time, because I don't have any, I don't have any model releases for these young women at all, or any of the other photos, street photos I've taken.
Yeah, these kind of shots would require that, because you ask them to be the model of your shot. But other street photography, if you're in a public area, you don't have to get a model release.
Right. So, yeah, I have mentioned sometimes to somebody with a tattoo that, hey, I'm doing a series of tattoos. Do you want to be part of it? No, they'll sometimes say yes, and sometimes they say no.
Right. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Hang on.
Just to add to that for a moment, Don?
Yeah, please do.
The business about taking pictures of people and not being kosher to keep them, show them. As long as you're not selling something with them on it, it's fine. That's kind of the golden rule. In public, yes, you can take pictures of people. Only if you're going to sell Coca-Cola and their picture is there, you're making money. That's the problem.
You know, there's
Yeah,
also,
yeah, if you take a photo of a trademark thing and you're selling it, that is a problem. Or a known celebrity, that could also be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the Eiffel Tower has some copyright things that you're technically not supposed to take pictures of the Eiffel Tower.
yeah, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in your old town too, Dick. They have a copyright on it.
Yeah. Yep, they do.
I have a very nice photo of the David from Italy that I got my hand slapped for taking, but it turned out to be a pretty good photo.
As a matter of fact, the TWA flight center at JFK, I talked to the owner of the building, Mr. Morris, who owns it or runs the company that owns it, and I asked him specifically if they had copyright and would I be able to use my images from the TWA terminal. He said, "Go right ahead." He said, "We're glad for the publicity. We're happy to have it."
Great. Any other questions for Dick? I want to move on to Michael Shoemaker and Deb Teska. They both are visiting artists with us, and let me see if I can get the screen because I think I have Deb's up here first. There you go. Deb, I'm sorry, the image I had was pretty small, so I thought this was larger than this. So I can't make it any bigger than that without distorting it really badly.
I don't know. I thought you were. I was all set to talk about the other one with coming down the stairs.
Yeah, I don't think I can get it right now.
Yeah, you got me on that. Okay. Well,
Talk about this process because you did it the last meeting that we had, but there's a lot of new people here. So tell us what you did here.
so it's called photo gravure. You take a photograph. It's in the computer, and you make a transparency. So basically, I think it's a negative. Yeah, it's a negative. And then you get a metal plate that has been treated with a photosensitive chemical. It's got a texture on it, and it's been treated with a photosensitive chemical. The negative is the same size, and it goes into, it's right next to the plate, and it gets exposed to light, and then it goes through the chemicals, and you harden it with, you process it with warm water, harden it with cold water, and then you have this plate that you can work with. And you put,
Deb, are you squeaking?
Yes, I am. I really like to squeak a lot.
Your dog squeaking has got my dog going crazy over here trying to figure out where it's coming from.
Yeah, we know. Anyway, and then you take ink and you put it on it. You have to wipe it off. Because you put gobs of ink on it, and then you wipe it off. You put the piece of paper on top of the plate, and it goes through a printing press with a lot of pressure, and then you have your image. But it's basically, it is a photograph. It's just a different way of printing it, basically. So, go ahead.
Did you make this paper?
This paper, the main paper that it's printed on is just printmaking paper. The paper behind it is paper that I made. So what it's set on is paper that I made using another printmaking process. So what I tried to do with the pieces that I chose were to have a couple of examples of straight printing on plain white paper so that you could see what you could do with just the image, but I couldn't resist doing something fun with how it was presented. But some of them also, one of them is printed 3 times. I have 3 prints put together on top of another photograph that I made. It's a big photograph, and I pasted them on top of another photograph. So there's lots of things you can do with it. You can just present them like this, or you can do other things with them. So
And you could put like a shadow box frame on it.
you can put a shadow box frame. 2 of them are printed on handmade paper. So the surface that you put it on, it changes it dramatically. And being a printmaker, that was my major in college, kind of takes me back to my roots. So I like being able to put the 2 together, the photography and the printmaking.
It's really interesting. I'm glad you decided to show it in the gallery. And people, when I've been working at the gallery, lots of people have asked me about that. And I always forget to say photo review or whatever you said it was.
They can always read the thing next to it because it does have a photo reviewer and it does have the definition on there. So I tried to include that. But I was a little nervous about showing them because it's really pretty different from straight photography.
Yeah, well, Image City needs to have some different things once in a while, so I'm glad you did it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Anyone else have a question they want to ask?
I just want to say they're stunning.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Betsy, I thought this might be something up your alley. I don't know if Betsy's still online or not. But...
I agree with Leon. I think they're absolutely stunning, and I think the addition of the printed paper in the background so much to the image.
Thank you.
It works really, really well together.
Appreciate
I like that. I hope you'll show some more of that in the future.
that. Be happy to.
Okay. I'm going to move over to Michael.
I
This is one of his photos, and Michael, I think we talked about this one before, but I wasn't sure which one to put up. But most of the folks here were here last week, or last virtual reception. So why don't you talk about this one again?
So this is a photograph from something called an area called Grand Falls in northern Arizona on the Navajo reservation. So it's the Navajo Nation, and it's a seasonal waterfall. So March, April, and it's all due to the runoff of the spring snowmelt, and it has a lot of sediment in it, so the water looks very brown or chocolate-like. And because it's in the Navajo Nation, it's undeveloped, and to get there, you need some, special directions. I mean, it's not really marked well, and it's a 10-mile drive off the main road on a very, washboard-like dirt road, and you have to go 10 miles an hour, and there's a parking lot that's not really marked, and you walk a little bit, and then you have this really big waterfall, and it's 185 feet tall. So I don't know if you can really, tell that from this image, but it's very spectacular. And, we found it by accident. We overheard some people talking about it when we were in Flagstaff, Arizona several years ago. And so we got to find that place. So we did, and it was, worth it. And it's really undeveloped, and there are no walking paths. You have to sort of, risk your life walking around there. So I was, we were younger then, so it was a little bit easier. So
Tell me, if you're shooting on a reservation, do you need to get permission?
I don't think so. We didn't encounter anybody. There were no signs. So I think if masses of people went there, I think there would be a problem, but there may have been 2 other cars there when we were there. So I don't think it's advertised at all.
There's no signage.
No signage.
We went back and forth 3 times before we finally found the little thing that they told us to look for. It doesn't say Grand Falls. They told us to look for a church or something. There was something about a church. So yeah, there's no advertisement.
So it's a little bit unusual. It's in the middle of the desert. So
Yeah.
And this is the Little Colorado River, which eventually goes to the Grand Canyon. So that's, or the Colorado River at the Grand Canyon.
Right.
And around this time of year, it probably doesn't exist, right?
That's
Nope.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So unless they have an occasional rainstorm, I think. But, so I thought it was a little bit of an adventure. But
Well, we appreciate you guys. This was your third visiting artistic show, right?
yes,
Yeah,
thank you so
yeah.
much. It has
And
been
we're really glad you did it.
Yeah.
I hope you might be interested in doing that again next year.
that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll be in touch with you for sure.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll talk with Gary Page, and Gary, can wave your hand around so people see where you are. There's Gary.
Hi.
Gary and his wife travel literally all over the world. He has some fantastic photographs of his travels. And for this exhibit, he's shown with us before. You may have seen his work. He does a lot of, actually everything he's shown in the gallery, I think, except for that toucan you showed. Was it toucan?
So was it toucan in the? Mhm.
That was on canvas. But he's been doing a lot of metal prints, and they're pretty impressive. And he's in the Newberger Gallery right now. And I'll have him talk about one of his photos in a minute. But if you're interested, Gary's going to do a artist talk next Tuesday, Gary?
Yes.
The 25th.
Time next Tuesday.
Yeah. If you're interested in attending Gary's photo talk, send me an email and I'll send you the link for it. But for right now, I'll let Gary talk about. He's showing a lot of Adirondack stuff in here, and I'll let him talk about this photo that I'm going to put up right now.
Just to be clear, the talk on Tuesday will include much more of the Adirondacks than is up there, but also some of the Finger Lakes as well as Letchworth also.
There's the one I wanted.
There it is.
Oops. I asked Gary to talk about this one because I find it so impressive, and I'll let him tell you about how we got it.
Oh, it was an interesting story. This is up at Elk Lake in the Adirondacks where Myrna and I, and at some point our children, had visited for over a quarter century. Now, when you think about northern forest and taiga going all the way up north, about wildlife, when people talk about teeming wildlife, they're not talking about most animals that are up there. You're lucky to see a moose somewhere in your lifetime, somewhere out there, but it's not common. As I say, we've been going for 26 years. This is the one and only moose we've actually seen. That said, every time we go for a week, we see moose trails, footprints, all over the place. And this is the largest animal in the region, and they cannot be seen. They just disappear. They're not interested in us. But one morning, just after breakfast in 2009 or 10, can't remember which, a long time ago, there was a ruckus far across the lake, and the lake is about a half a mile across at that point, and so there's nothing to be seen there. Just a whole lot of bird noise. And the birders who were there, it's a single lodge there. It's a private reserve, pristine, no noise, no motors, no phones. And this guy happened to be over there, and the birds went crazy. Well, who would have thought that a moose would decide to simply, some morning, swim across the lake a half a mile? But that's what he did. He jumped in the water and swam. All the while, the birds are going crazy and flying around. Well, eventually they gave up. The moose had gone halfway across the lake. But we saw them thanks to the birders with the binoculars. And we always go up out in the canoe after breakfast and stay out for several hours and shooting photographs. We usually go with 4 cameras, and so we were getting ready, and we hauled it out there to try to intercept. We figured, okay, he's going across the lake a half a mile out and across a half a mile. We kind of figured a triangulated intercept, and it turns out we guessed pretty well. He was swimming across the lake island by island. He would get off an island, go to the other side, jump in, swim some more, go on another island, until he finally disappeared into the woods on the other side. Now, the funny part is, as homage to us, we were taking pictures of him. When he got on the other side and realized he was on terra firma and on his way out, he turned around and looked at us and then peed for us. Anyway, this was him climbing up on one of the islands while we were about 70 feet away in a canoe. We didn't know, these are big animals. He's a full-size bull moose, but on the young side, which is why the antlers are small. We didn't know to what extent he would just jump in the water and be able to come over and tip over our canoe or get angry or whatever. And as you can see, he's looking right at me. He's looking. But he didn't really care. He just strolled across and then dove into the water on the other side, and we only hauled it out there to go take that picture too. And then a little later, and this one is actually, there are two, this one and another one up in the gallery right now. One of them has him standing on the bottom of the lake in between two islands. Well, it wasn't that deep, but these guys are very tall, and he was, I guess, yeah, if you can see my white pointer, he was sticking his neck and head out about at this level, standing in the middle of the lake. There's nothing within 200 yards of him. So they're big. So that's what I have to say about him. He gave us quite a show. Never seen a moose again. These two pictures sit in Elk Lake Lodge out on the wall in the dining room, which is awfully lovely. But since then, there's been only one moose sighting at the lodge, and before that, there was another one moose sighting in that whole 26-year period.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this
Gary,
is,
talk to folks for a minute about the perspective that you take these pictures. When you go, if you can get into the gallery and go into the Newburgh Gallery and look at Gary's photos, they're all taken from this level. You don't get that photograph standing on land across the lake, because Gary and Myrna are always on the water in a canoe or a kayak.
yeah. Well, you can't bring much gear in a kayak, and so we don't use kayaks. It's kind of a dangerous way to go. We go into a canoe with 4 camera bodies. Each of us, my wife Myrna, and Myrna, by the way, sorry she can't be here. She's on a seminar, a webinar in the other room at the moment, indisposed. In any case, we use a canoe because we can load our wet packs. We don't care if it rains or shines. You know, there's that old adage about there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. We have a lot of appropriate clothing for this, ponchos, wet packs, whatever. But we take our full set of gear, and that requires a canoe. It also allows us to carry lunch and a whole bunch of other things. And we go out for, all day. The reason it's so nice, and it's no different from taking pictures of your kids or grandkids, you want to get in the floor so you're at their perspective, so that the meaning of the picture makes a connection with that either critter or person. You don't want to be shooting up their nose or down on the top of their head. And so a canoe is great because you're only 3 feet above the water line, and sometimes we'll actually sit on the bottom of the canoe and shoot out across the gunnel to do pictures like, for example, of loons. And I think, Don, you're going to show that one next?
I don't have that one, I don't believe.
Oh, is this the only one we have?
Yeah, I only have one up here.
Okay.
But I
go
would.
to the gallery. There are many others of other critters, and this is one of the things that I do. Don is right. If you absolutely want to get at their level, you want to shoot right into their eye. This guy's so big, of course, he's standing 12 above us. But yeah, that is a dictum that we use. And
the balloon picture, if you guys get to go and look at it, you can tell it's taken from the water level, but I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, you couldn't take that any other way.
Harry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Harry?
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you, I so admire your photographs. Have you ever been up to Newfoundland?
No, we've never been up to Newfoundland. We've been a lot of places around the world, but we haven't been up there.
Well, that's a great place to go to see more moose, and they're very happy.
Well, there's that famous island in Lake Superior that is all about wolves and moose. And what is it? You know that national park? I can't remember the name of it. Isle Royal, perhaps?
I don't know.
They were doing a scientific experiment. This is decades ago. They put a group of moose and a group of wolves there and saw how the equilibrium between them actually worked out. And they were in equilibrium for decades.
Very cool.
I see you looking at me. The evil eye.
I have a reason for that moose.
Jerry, your your voice is really kind of choppy and broken up, so I'm not sure what you said.
I think it may,
I asked how long of telephoto light used for that photograph.
Oh, I'm sorry, about the lens used.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm guessing, this is from 2009. So my guess is it was a 70 to 200 with a 1.4x tele extender on it. That's what I would have been using back then. The f2.8 Nikon.
Very good.
Any other questions for Gary? Okay, well, remember, if you want to listen to his photo talk, Gary does a great photo talk, by the way, and he'll have a slideshow of all the photos, I think, it's in the exhibit, right, Gary? Plus maybe a few.
Many more than that, yeah.
Okay. But he's very educated about the places he goes, so it's going to be a very interesting talk. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's go to Marie. Marie, you ready? Give me a second to get your photo up here. Let's see. Whoops. Damn it. Gotta do something different. Like that. Gotta get rid of this one. Put up this one. Okay. Hang on one sec.
Yes.
This photo, there are many people that go out and shoot Chimney Bluffs. This is one of the best photos I've seen of Chimney Bluffs, so why don't you talk about that, Marie?
Thank you, Don. Well, I tend to love to go out and shoot sunsets after there's been kind of a rainy day because the clouds are typically better, for at least from what I've noticed. And so that day it had rained most of the day, and then the sun peaked out around 6 o'clock. So I asked my husband if he wanted to go for a ride, and when we got there, it was exactly the type of night that I was hoping for. The clouds were just gorgeous. They were moving in the right direction. The sun was just glowing, and I just really love the way when you go to Chimney Bluffs, if you take shots of the bluffs, you've got the sun that's hitting the bluffs at just the right moment. So I was really excited about that night, and I took several shots. The sky kept changing. There's different pinks and purples and blues, and it was just a beautiful night.
In your photography, Marie, is this, I have to ask this question the right way because I mess with mine a lot. How much of the color in this have you enhanced?
I basically brought out, the shadows, and I, in Lightroom, just hit landscape, but then I didn't like it as much in that landscape mode, where the profile is. So then I just kept shifting a bit. But I really mainly had to bring up the shadows because it was just a little underexposed.
Probably the cliff over here on the lower left corner.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What I like about this photo is, I don't do sunsets or sunrises, but this is really a good example of one that works because the sunset is providing light. It's not really sunset pictures that are not really about the sunset are the ones that I like.
Ah, okay.
And this is more, the sunset here is beautiful, but mostly it's providing the light for the rest of the image. And you can see the lines. I was going to point to it with my finger, but that wouldn't help. All these lines, the horizon line, the cliff line, the cloud line, the edge of the cliff line, they all come to this point right here. Everything goes to that point, which is a really nice convergence of lines. But anyways, and the texture of the water with the clouds and the ground over here, really great, really fun image.
Thank you. I've always been attracted to rocks since I was a child. I remember in 6th grade, my teacher took us to the gorge in Rochester, and we went looking for fossils. And I was just intrigued with the way erosion causes such interesting formations, and it just really amazed me. So since then, I've always liked taking photos of various rocks and then the elements as they hit. So it was a nice night.
I'm gonna have to show this to my granddaughter. She always comes home with her pockets full of stones and stuff. Maybe she's headed in the same path.
I was the same way. I had boxes of them up in our attic.
Anyone else have a question for Marie?
I just want to say I'm a rock hound too. Since I was collecting rocks everywhere.
Oh,
From Japan, I've got rocks from Oregon, I've got rocks from Arizona, and I have no idea where they're from. I got 3 new ones yesterday.
oh. Do you paint them too, or do you just have them?
Do I what, paint them?
Yes.
No, I don't paint them.
That's what I've got the grandchildren doing now.
Painting rocks.
Yes, I do paint them, but I've even sent my granddaughter rocks because she loves them too. Okay, so, it's 10 pounds heavier when I go home.
Maria, I was going to say after everything Don said about that cliff, next time you're out there, that would be a great place for Jay to stand, but don't do it. Because that looks like one of those cliffs that would crumble, so I don't think you want to send him out there. Maybe do it in Photoshop. Yeah.
Yes. Good idea.
Any other questions? Statements? Sharon's done a lot of work out at Chimney Bluffs.
Oh,
So yeah, maybe we should compare notes sometimes.
that would be nice. Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Let's see, Jerry Ayuba, wiggle your hand there, Jerry. I don't know if we're going to be able to hear you very well, so I'll put up your picture and see how it goes. Okay? This was my favorite picture of Jerry's. As soon as I figure out where my Photoshop screen is.
Jerry, I'm not hearing any audio yet. You might want to try something else here.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Good. You're good.
yeah, sounds good now. Go ahead.
You figured it out finally.
Hey, I have to tell you that today from Amazon, because I'm so tired of these situations not working, I ordered a webcam and a mic. So I may be better on the next one.
Okay.
All right.
But this, I got to tell you a quick story. I joined Instagram last, probably August, maybe about a year ago. And I hunt around Instagram for photographic work that I really like. And this is one of them. And this is where I found Jerry, and I convinced him to show his work in the gallery. Gary's got if you're an Instagram person, look him up and see some of his work, or better yet, come to the gallery and see what he's got there. Really, really good photography. Okay, Jerry, now tell us about it. Tell us about this one.
Oh, well, this is Half Dome at Yosemite, and this was a trip this past fall that my wife and I took. I was so looking forward to being at this national park. It's so beautiful. And this is the sunlight illuminating Half Dome is the setting sun. And I got down in the Yosemite Village, and there's a river that runs through there. And it was just very cool because I had the dome and the sky kind of framed with the trees around them and the reflection in the river. And I do love this image. I have taken a lot of the park, and I can't wait to get back there.
Well, Jerry, tell us a little bit. You've shared some information to me about how you got into photography. Jerry's a former educator like myself and Dick Bennett and a few other people at the gallery. Just give us a quick little story about how you got into doing this photography stuff.
Well, I got my first camera when I was about 16 from an uncle who was a photographer, and almost went off to college to study photography. As you said, Don, I became an educator, but if you came into my office, and I was a middle school principal, all my art really hung around my office, and it was very disarming, I think, to folks. So anyway, I retired about 8 years ago. When I left education, I went to RIT, and as a non-matriculated student, took a bunch of photo classes, which were great fun. Even ran into some of my former students who couldn't understand why the old man would go back to school, but it's just such a wonderful hobby, and I love the outdoors. So a lot of my stuff I do a lot of different things, but do a lot of nature stuff.
They're great. I hope that you'll consider showing with us again because your work is really great.
Well, thank you, Don. That's a very thoughtful compliment. I certainly am enjoying this.
Is this the first time you've displayed your work in a gallery?
No, I displayed work in the Osher Gallery. I was also a student in RIT's Osher program, and some of my work was displayed at the Fringe Festival a couple of seasons ago. So not too much. Those are really the experiences that I've had.
Well, thanks for sharing your information with us. Appreciate that. I want to show you guys, I'm sorry, does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask Jerry about? Okay, well, thanks for sharing. I want to show you a picture. Unfortunately, this guy couldn't be with us tonight, but I want to show you an interesting photo if you come into the gallery. Because I've talked to him about this, I can share a little bit about it. This is Kyle Preston's photograph. It's printed on metal. What was interesting, and the photographic purist probably wouldn't care for this a whole lot, but obviously these are two different pictures that are put together. So he was out one night and took a picture of New York from New Jersey. I don't know exactly the spot he stood to take this picture. But then he thought about, when he saw the reflection, he says, I have to go back during the daytime and put my tripod and my camera in exactly the same spot and take a daytime picture. And then he put them together, so it looks like one's a reflection of the other. And I don't think it might even be interesting to look at this upside down or right side up, depending on which way you want to do it. But it's hanging in the gallery, and he was another one of our guests this past show, and I think his stuff is really worth seeing. Let me back out for a second. Anybody have any comment about that?
It's one of my favorites. I think it's very cool.
It is cool, yeah, it is. Another, I think Steve found Kyle. I'm not sure. All right, I want to go here for a second, but let me just get out of here for a minute, so you can see who did this. We have we've been running a photo challenge. We started back in the first week in March, and the current photo challenge, we stopped doing them weekly, but we gave people an opportunity to do a weekly challenge during the midst of the pandemic so they could keep their hand in their photography. So we've actually had, like I said, the one we're doing now is our 15th photo challenge, but the one just before it was on transportation. And what we do is the gallery partners judge this competition, and we pick out the ones we like, the top 4 that we like, and we display them in the gallery. So the ones that are in the gallery right now, actually, I think Tom Credo is the only one that's here. Oh no, is Diane here still? She was here a minute ago. I don't see her name, so maybe she's not here anymore. Tom still is though, right? Wiggle your hand, Tom. There's Tom. Well, on my screen he's right. I'm going to say he's right in the middle, but he might not be on your screen. So I'm going to bring that picture back up and let Tom talk about it. And while I'm doing it, let me just say that, well, maybe he'll tell you. Maybe he'll tell you what got him to take this photo. So this is one of the transportation photos.
Hi, Don. Thanks. This photo was taken when my wife and I took a trip to Portugal. This is in Lisbon, and we were just walking the streets. We just arrived, got in a hotel, started walking the streets with. I just had a kind of a small snap camera, but they had these trolley cars that go up and down the middle of the street, and so this one was starting to go by me, and I thought it would make a great photo. So it's actually reminiscent of a classic photo. I forget the name of the Frank, right?
Robert Frank.
Robert Frank.
That's what I was just going to talk about. Robert Frank traveled around the country and took photographs of how he saw America. And when his book came out, if you're interested in studying Robert Frank, he was panned because he didn't make us look that good. But they were honest photographies, and this is very typical of a Robert Frank photograph, except his are all black and white. But you might want to take a look at this as a black and white photo, just to see.
Yeah, I thought there were so many colors in it. I thought it was kind of, especially the Jameson and the yellow.
Colors are good here.
I kind of liked it. But on the post processing, I think I've you know, increased the light on the woman in the window, and I think that was the biggest part of it. I think I actually flattened it out. It was a little bit of curve.
Yeah, you can see yeah.
And so I kind of flattened that out, but that's about all I did to it.
Those of you who don't know Tom, he's a regular photographer in the gallery, and his work is always really good. Tom, I think you've probably won or were one of the winners in several of these challenges, weren't you?
Well, at least two, yeah. I think two, yeah.
Not to mention at least a half a dozen portfolio showcase winnings as well, right, Tom?
Right. Yeah. Anybody have a question for Tom?
No, I just want to comment. I just think that the variety of expressions and the people are just incredible. That's why I think it would work in black and white, because you're just seeing, you know, the woman in the white is laughing and other people are pensive, and then you can just barely see people standing in the background, and then there's a little bit of red on the end.
Yeah. This, even though the yellow is, and the colors are very attractive, in some ways, Tom, I think they take away from the people, because you get the color. And you might just want to take a look at it. Jay Mizell is a famous New York City street photographer, and one of the things he looks for when he takes pictures of people in the street is what he calls gesture. And every person in this window, this guy with his finger pointing, this lady with her hand to her face, maybe she's coughed, this one here in a pensive, thinking kind of position, this one here laughing, as Betsy said, all of these faces have gesture with them, and that's what makes it such a strong image to me.
Yeah, I almost liked the last guy on the right.
This guy here looked like he's trying to crawl out the window?
Yeah, it would have been a perfect picture, but I thought it was great because I had an individual in each one that kind of had great.
Really nice.
Great
This
job, Tom.
Laura Connect is not here, but she also was one of the winners of the transportation challenge, with a different kind of a transportation picture. And these two photos, when you look at them, they're so different, but they both express transportation in a different way. Laura's going to be showing in the next 3 shows at the gallery, so I just wanted to show you this because Laura's a really good photographer. She shoots things a little differently. She's somewhere in between Betsy and Tom, I think. A little more abstract type things. And Diane Dersch, who was here a little while ago, she took this photo, which is another transportation, but totally different kind of transportation. But it was also one of the winners.
Just a comment, Laura and I are going shooting tomorrow.
Good, great. Well, I don't think I left anybody out. Some of you folks are here that are going to be here next week. Jim Dusen, wave your hand. There's Jim. You're going to be showing in the next show, correct?
October.
October. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I don't think I left anybody out. Well, I want to, if no one has anything else they'd like to share, I'd like to thank people who came. Chip Ever, wave your hand. There's Chip in my screen. He's up in the upper left-hand corner. Chip's a regular shower in the gallery. I think you're showing in the next show. Am I wrong about that too?
No, coming up.
Coming up, okay. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I had a good time tonight. These seem to last about an hour, and I think that's just about right. Hopefully, you guys will get into the gallery to see the work in person. We do respect COVID laws. I should say COVID guidelines, and we're a pretty safe place to be. Thanks so much. Hope you have a good
I
night.
just want to say I enjoyed seeing all of the work, and I really value your talent, and I thank Carl for inviting me.
You're welcome,
It was
Dottie.
good
Good
seeing
to see
Rick
you.
Costanza again after decades.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dorothy. It's so good
You're
to see
welcome,
you.
Marie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks again.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Liz.
Good night.